Hello all of you out there, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the top 10 most versatile Ark tames, so let's get into it. In at number 10 is the Snow Owl, and this creature has a huge variety of abilities, and actually the abilities which this creature has is absolutely insane, and it is incomparable to any other creature, and there are definitely loads and loads and loads of uses for this thing. Firstly, it can be a really great travel mount for traversing any kind of map due to that glide ability, and compared to something like the Griffin, it feels significantly smoother and faster, which actually makes it a lot more of a fun creature to use. But also they do have a somewhat heat-seeking ability, which will help you track down any kind of dino or organism or just general player in a PvP scenario or PvE scenario that you maybe can't see with your own eyes, or if you're just trying to spot someone that's hiding somewhere after they try to raid your base, or if they're just trying to raid your base, then you can easily see them with this mechanic, which is a really nice, cool feature to have. And also you're going to want to pump loads and loads of stamina into these things, not just so they can fly longer distances, but also so that you can heal up creatures, which is their kind of main ability. These things can freeze any creature, that be enemy creatures, wild creatures, or your own creatures, and heal them up for a period of time. That obviously depending on your amount of stamina, which can be really useful for healing up your creatures in a boss fight, and also really useful if you're trying to tame a creature and you need to quickly heal that thing up to get it up to a reasonable amount of health so you can continue firing tranks into it. Next up is the Basilosaurus, and this creature is so versatile for anything underwater, and I'll pretty much use no other creature apart from this thing for any kind of underwater exploration, and their damage is still really solid as well. So when it comes to combat, these things will definitely put up a fight. Have no idea what you're going to be doing when pitting up a fight. Don't really know what that is. Either way, in terms of their other uses, apart from just being great for just general underwater exploration, they're great in the underwater caves as well, and they're immune to things like jellyfish and electric eels and all of those kind of things, which no other creature to this day has, which is absolutely insane to think about, but it really gives you a sense of immunity on the ocean. The Basilo will also passively make oil as well, just as a nice little thing, but definitely if you have one of these things, take into mind that they do have a depth limit, and they'll take some damage if they go too deep under the sea. Next up, we have the Astrodelphis, and this creature is definitely one of the newer ones, being introduced a lot later on in Ark's life, obviously being a Gen 2 creature. May have already said that already, but if not, it's a Gen 2 tame. And Gen 2 is notoriously known for its wealth of OP creatures, and the Astrodelphis definitely falls under that category, and it is one of the best travel mounts out there, being capable of absolutely zipping across the map and looking really cool at the same time, which you could also do if you subscribe to this channel. You can be the coolest Ark player out there. But also in terms of their other abilities too, they deal a very significant amount of damage, and they can also fire somewhat lasers out of their tech saddle as well. And the tech saddle is the only saddle which they have, which is their main downside really, as that can be an absolute pain to get. But if you prepare for it adequately and you get to the right level, then it isn't the hardest thing that you'll face on Genesis Part 2. And when taming one, you really won't regret it. Although seemingly expensive on the surface, requiring a lot of element is one of the easiest things to get on Gen 2, and you'll have no problems. And considering how useful this thing is for travel and for dealing damage and for missions, it really is versatile. In at number 7 is the Shadowmane, and yet again another Gen 2 creature, and this thing just has such wealth of ability that it has to be put on this list at some point. It is absolutely crammed with abilities. It is just so so full of abilities that it has to be put on this list. It is a really agile creature, which is also very capable of defeating bosses and dealing insane amounts of damage. But you can see its agility there by just how high this thing can actually jump. It's actually really absurd. The insanity, don't know why I use so much alliteration there, but this thing can jump insanely high. And it also does have the hydration buff and the pack buff too. And it is really great underwater as well, which can't be said for many other carnivores. And also, considering its size, it is really easy to take anywhere, and it doesn't even require a saddle. Its only real downside being its absolute pain of a taming method, but it's definitely well worth it. Now, the Velonosaur has to be included on this list. This creature just has so much usability in so many areas. Firstly, and uncommonly, this is a very good travel mount, and considering its size, it really does make sense. It is that right size of carnivore where it is quick and reasonably agile, and it has good mobility in terms of its turning circle, and it can really get around the place, and its stamina drain is next to absolute nothing. But also, it is great as a turret as well, as that's kind of its main use overall. This thing is a literal living turret, an absolute beast of a creature. This thing just packs so much when it comes into that turret ability. And sadly, that doesn't scale when you level up melee damage, but still, this is an incredibly useful ability for so many reasons. Not just because it's going to deal the most damage, because it isn't the most damage dealing ability out there, but because you have that range and you can absolutely pepper creatures with these things, and they fire so fast, and with so many at one time, you can deal insane damage to any creature. Definitely a really cool use, which I think Wildcard should revisit in a new creature sometime. In at number 5 is the Maywing, and this creature is pretty much the epitome of travel. And yes, the other creature, which was earlier on the list being the Astrodelphis, is a very good travel mount as well. But the reason why this is higher is partly because it actually does go faster than the Astrodelphis when in full glide, and albeit it does glide instead of fly. But also, this thing's saddle is unlocked at level 19 instead of like level 117 or level 120 something. I think it's more 110 when the Astrodelphis is. But either way, this thing's saddle is unlocked at level 19, and it is one of the easiest tames in the game, just being a very simple knockout tame, and boom, feed it berries or meat. I can't actually remember if it's a herbivore or a carnivore, but they're both very attainable in the early game. Haven't really tamed a Maywing in a while, as I haven't played Gen 2 for ages, and only recently I have just been breeding these things. Obviously, I've been breeding these things for a while, but in terms of recent uses of the Maywing, I've just been breeding them. They're also great for raising creatures as well, as they act as a portable feeding trough, and they can gather berries too, so if you're in a pinch, especially in these early stages of the game, level 19, that can work really in your favour. Now, the Deinonychus is just one of those creatures which has to be on any list for versatility. This creature just has so many vast uses, and it is just one of those more creative creatures from Wildcard in my opinion. And there are just so many reasons to use this creature, namely obviously for bosses, as its bleed ability will carry into bosses. Not that any other creature's bleed ability won't carry into bosses, it's just they're not allowed into bosses, as creatures like the Thyla aren't allowed into bosses. I don't know, Karna's bleed ability, I'm pretty sure, don't carry onto bosses. And also creatures like the Carcharodontosaurus. Yes, I think that bleed ability may work on Titans, but I'm not really sure about that. But for the general bosses, the Deinonychus bleed ability is going to carry, especially when you can grapple onto those creatures and just rip them to absolute shreds. And also their pack buff is going to apply here, as you're obviously going to be using these things in packs, which makes these things even stronger, which is something which can't be said for some other creatures on this list. Although the Shadowmane is a very great pack creature, don't know what's wrong with my voice, pack creature as well. But also these things are significantly great climbers compared to the Shadowmane, and although they can't jump to great heights, they can still do all kinds of cool parkour jumping along the rocks, in this case the chalk cliffs on Valguero. Definitely a really good tame, and compared to the Shadowmane, it has a significantly more friendly taming method. In at number 3 is the Desmodus, and this creature obviously being one of the newer creatures added to Ark coming out on Fjorda, which yes wasn't the closest amount of time ago, but it still is very recent in the grand scheme of things in terms of Ark, as it is the newest map I think to come to the game. Not sure when Svartalfheim released, and I think that's on ASA now. But Fjord is kind of considered the kind of more recent map, and it definitely is a very recent map coming after Gen 2. But obviously in terms of its versatility, it is a great travel mount, again for that gliding ability like the Snow Owl. It can also make Sanguine Elixir, meaning that tames are an absolute cheese with this thing, as 30% of it is done instantly like that. They can also grapple onto walls and ceilings like the Tapejara can, although not sure if the Tapejara can grapple onto ceilings. Just make sure not to dismount when using this ability, and it can also go invisible in the night, although I never got that to work on this B-roll, as stupidly I was on Extinction, and for some reason the gliding animation seemingly glitched here. In at number 2 is the RG, and the RG has to be on the list for versatility. It is one of those creatures which needs to be counted on this list, as it is just so versatile in all of its uses, namely obviously being one of the best, if not the best, creature to take up to the mountains and do some metal runs. And you can kind of put the Anki and the Dodic in this spot as well, as when paired with the RG, they are a great combination, gathering you insane amounts of metal, flint and stone, and all of those resources which a pickaxe and a hatchet are going to get you, but in even higher amounts. And this is obviously helped by the RG's weight reduction on things like metal, crystal and obsidian. But they can also pick up a wealth of creatures as well. Obviously they can pick up the Dodic and the Anki, but they can actually pick up some pretty sizable creatures. Although not as big as what the Quetzal can carry, you don't really need that for doing metal runs and things like that. And if you want to carry a friend with you, if you're carrying a player across the map, if you're doing a cave or something, that is when I would use the RG apart from metal runs. And also they do have a couple of hidden little abilities up their sleeve as well, their saddle acting as a portable smithy. So again, if you're doing a cave run, you can quickly repair your flak armor, as I'll always be using flak in a cave instead of having to go all the way back to base to repair it. And also if they eat a dead corpse, they have a really nice, neat, quick regen ability, which can't be said for some other carnivores. And in at number 1 is the Thyla, and the reason why I am putting this above the RG in terms of use is because I'm not really a fan of how flyers deal damage. And although this isn't the best metal gathering creature out there for doing metal runs, it still is pretty decent, as its weight and stamina can keep up, and with its wealth of climbing abilities, a mountain hike isn't really that difficult to do. Although the terrain can be pretty annoying on ASA, but on ASE it is some of the easiest things that you will ever face when using the Thyla. But also, unlike the RG, which is the main reason why I'm putting this higher, it really does pack a punch in terms of damage. And it does deal that bleed ability as well, which is really essential in a carnivore. Sadly, the RG doesn't have it, but if it did, it would most definitely be in number 1, and if its turning circle was maybe a little bit better. But also the fact that this thing can climb up vertical walls and jump off of redwood trees and pounce onto things too. There is just so many cool uses for PvP and for PvE Ark players to use this thing for, even though I mainly think it is more leaned towards PvE players, as this thing isn't really any kind of turret tank, but it can be pretty good for scouting out a base. No idea what's wrong with my voice today. Or just general, maybe smaller raids if you just want to climb over someone's fence and then just demolish all of their creatures, as these things can easily kill something like a Rex if you've got a good level. Again, that bleed ability is going to do a wealth of damage towards them, so they really are, in my opinion, the most versatile Ark tame out there. So thank you to my wonderful patrons Ekaterina Puchkova, Karina Thorne, Dominic Masajewski and Ethan Tapia, who have all supported me through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. If you want to join this list, then go join Patreon or YouTube members. But thanks to all of these guys.